Our reverse pricing system combines buyer-driven pricing and hidden price factors to pinpoint the best list price that'll get your home sold for the most amount of money in the least amount of time in any market. Let's go over that in depth. Buyer-driven pricing. 2020 through 2023 were unicorn years. Record low interest rates and out-of-town buyers drove demand through the roof. Today's market is far more balanced. Buyers are way more selective, and sellers' mistakes cost way more. What this means for you. Buyers want to feel like they got the best deal. A seller or a selling party needs to understand what a buyer wants and what they need in order to get the deal closed in the first place. Today's lending environment isn't as friendly as it was in the past, and insurance, taxes, interest rates, buyers are getting beat up from every angle, so they look for help where they can get it. We need to strategically position your pricing based on competing listings. Typically, people think that list prices are created through the sold comparables, but in reality, to be undefeated in any market, you need to price compared to what is available, not what is sold. When a buyer is looking on the market, they aren't looking at what has sold and how much it's sold for. They're looking at what's available, what their options are today, and how much they're willing to pay for it. Now, we do use sold listing comparables to get a good understanding of the appraised value and maybe avoid potential issues in the future. For example, let's say we list a house at 730, it sells for 740, but all of the comps are showing us that 720 is probably the highest that an appraisal will come in at. It doesn't mean that a buyer is not willing to pay more, but it means that there's a hurdle that will be eventually dealt with. So knowing ahead of time does help. Number 2, hidden price factors. Backdoor access to competing listings. This is an underrated benefit of working with a professional realtor. We walk properties with buyers all the time. Me personally, I know the top agents in my area and the top agents know me. So it's not a big deal for me to call the top agent. Hey Susie, how's it going? I see you sold 123 Manor. What was the story there? I see it sat on the market for a while. You didn't have to change the price, but it still sold for full price. She may tell me we couldn't do showings for the first month, or the seller was being hard and she didn't want to, I don't know, maybe fix something that she knew was wrong, some cracks on the tile or something that was hindering buyers from purchasing. So little things like that, you really don't find out unless you speak to people. Pricing leverage indicators. This is huge, especially here in South Florida. HOAs. HOAs are getting hammered, and if you don't know the current standing of your HOA, or maybe you do know, you can't compare it to just any home with, let's say, a $500 a month HOA. You have to know that this home or this condo community, townhouse community, has the funds for the future, are not going to get affected by the laws that are coming in the next year or so, and do have funds to actually do the renovations that they may need or will need in the future. Now, more so for single family and townhouses, you have to understand if your house was built in the 80s or 90s or maybe even early 2000s, it's just about that time where you may need a new roof. Right now, buyers are all over that subject due to the issues with South Florida's property insurance. It's very difficult to get insurance. Nowadays, you have a few cracked tiles and they tell you they wouldn't cover it. So we have to be ahead of these issues and price accordingly. If you know that you have a new roof, you price accordingly. You can't overprice it just because you have a new roof. And a house that doesn't have a new roof, let's say they sell for 500, that may not tell the whole story. We don't know if the seller behind the scenes did corrections that don't show up on the sales price or possibly gave money for repairs. The same with cast iron pipes, polybutylene. Those are rarely ever mentioned in listings, and they are big factors in buyers' decisions towards picking one listing compared to another. Why Zillow isn't reliable. Every sale has a story. Sometimes, let's say we have actually perfect example. I have a neighbor who just listed his home for, let's say, $30,000 under market value, what others are selling for. But if I just go on Zillow and see that sale, I don't know that he sold because he had another property under contract that he got off market and he could not pass on it. So he didn't care to lose 10, 15, 20,000 on his home sale because his home purchase following that was a win already. So it does matter to know more than just the numbers. Sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, you see a property sit long and it still sells for full price. Typically, there's something going on. Maybe a tenant in the property, maybe an issue with repairs or insurance claim, but there's always something behind the number. What to do? In order to win in this market, just price in line with buyers' expectations and current market sentiment. Now, when considering current market sentiment, I don't mean going on the news and just seeing what the latest news articles are saying. I mean knowing what real buyers in your area are looking for, and that's hard for someone who's not in the industry to know. But that's what we're here for. I speak to my buyers and they give me their personal feedback on specific addresses. So I know that a buyer looking in this area for this price, they're not willing to pay that number today. Maybe in a few months, if rates drop, they're willing to, or maybe they're just willing to wait a little longer and get another $20,000, $30,000 discount that they could apply to a new roof or a new kitchen or whatever it is that a buyer wants. We need to compare your home's features and upgrades to competing available listing. This is crucial. No matter how much an owner thinks that their features are worth, let's say a beautiful designer kitchen, maybe a buyer just isn't willing to pay the extra money for a designer kitchen compared to the next listing that has a new kitchen, nice renovated kitchen, but isn't all out designer and luxurious and top-notch finishes. Maybe a buyer is willing to pay $30,000, $40,000 less for a property that doesn't have high-end finishes but is in clean, renovated condition. So we need to factor that into your pricing, and that's where me walking properties in person with my buyers kind of helps. So I know more or less what buyers are actually looking for. I have walked into homes, I've touched the materials, walked in and out, smelled the home. Sometimes you see pictures online and you go to a property and it looks nothing like that in person. So we need to create urgency and leverage multiple offers. That is the entire goal of everything when you're selling a home. Leverage multiple offers. And if you're not getting multiple offers, you need to be getting multiple eyes on the property at the same time so they know that there's friction and they can't take their time or ask for small repairs or nickel and diming. Even if you have 0 offers on the table, we need to make it seem like your house is booming and the market's going crazy for it. Next here we have do not price with emotion. It's difficult to reverse the damage caused by pricing high. That's self-explanatory. But in this market, buyers they're sleeping on it. They're not just jumping on a property the same day that they saw it. They're sleeping on it. They're waiting a week. They're coming back seeing properties 2-3 times. Sometimes they even pre-negotiate with the seller just to feel them out and then don't even send an offer. So you can't price with emotion. Let's say you have an irregular lot that's the largest lot in the community. You see a regular lot sold pretty easily and now you want to price yours at an inflated number thinking that buyers will buy it. It's not always that easy. Sometimes you just have to take a step back or put yourself in the buyer's shoes. Would you pay an extra $100,000 for this listing with the irregular lot? Or would you save the 100 and get a regular lot home that still satisfies all your boxes? So back to the main point, affordability is huge nowadays and buyers are opting out to leaving a few boxes unchecked just to get their numbers correct. What the reverse pricing system can do for you, it can help you avoid the number one mistakes that ruin deals every single day. Knowing buyers' affordability issues and knowing ahead of time your home's issues can save you tons of money and can avoid from you being an example for someone else who's listing their home. You don't want to be an example that negatively affects your home's value or your community's value. You want to be an example that brings your community value up, and just the energy and the pace and the speed of transactions that keeps the energy in your community up and keeps the sales coming in high. What the reverse pricing system can do for you, accurate pricing technique. We model succeeding competition, kind of like what I just said. The vibes are high in a community once you see a succeeding sale. Smart agents and smart sellers pick up to what they did and they try to get in front of it instead of chasing. You don't want to catch a falling knife. You want to get ahead of it. And let me give you an example. We have a $550,000 home that already sold. We have a $570,000 home that's on the market. Let's say these are all the same square footage or very near it, same condition, same community. And now you, the seller, are considering selling your homes. We have 550 sold, 575 active, and now you, the question mark. You know the 575 is the only other option in the community. Your home is slightly nicer. You don't price it over that because until that 575 sells, you won't sell either. So either you start at 575, 570, maybe 565, and you may be able to end up towards that 575. Now, if that 550 number is the real value of that home and you can't get it to appraise over that, then buyers will see that, and you have to acknowledge the truth and jump in front of that 570 active listing and get to that fair value before you end up wasting time and work your way to 550 and then 540, and then maybe a buyer picks it up, or 530 and a buyer picks it up. You have to get ahead before the buyers just sit there and play the patient game with you, and they're very patient nowadays. Reality over media, how not to fall for it. It's very, very easy nowadays, especially with AI, to get confused not only with fake news, but with news that may be real, but shifted to push a certain perspective on a subject. Let's say, for example, some news article that's telling you that the Florida market is crashing, South Florida is crashing. That can drive a seller to price their property too aggressively and leave money on the table. Now, vice versa, an article is telling you the South Florida market hasn't slowed down, it's still on fire. That can cause a seller to overprice their home with false expectations, and now they fall way below the value that they should have got if they priced correctly from the start. Competitive interrogation. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of colleagues in the real estate industry, and it is no big deal to call them up and say, hey, what happened in this transaction? How did it go down? Did you get a lot of activity in the open house? Did you get a lot of phone calls during your first week? I see you sold in a week. How did that go? Did you get lucky and get one offer, or did you have a handful of offers and you selected? Because sometimes you see 5 days on the market, it could be luck. The one buyer probably got scared of competition and made a move, which isn't a bad thing to do, but it happens. Below is a case study that I did to show the differences in results in sellers that don't use our reverse pricing strategy and sellers that do use our reverse pricing strategy. These videos are about 5 to 10 minutes long, so I'm only going to show a maybe 1 to 2 minute clip of each one. If you want access to both, they'll be on the next page. Let's start with this without the system. Here are a few examples of what can go wrong when you price incorrectly or based on emotions. Here's a house in Harbor Lake Estates in West Miramar. Very desirable community, very nice house. Looks like it's been taken care of, no rear neighbors. There are 1.1 million for 217 days. Clearly something's wrong. So just to show you what a larger house in the same community in better condition sold for, 1,040,000. They started at 1,175. So clearly this guy is way overpriced at 1.1, and if he wanted to sell and maybe get the 1.1, he should have started around 1,050,000, 1,075,000. But at this point, he's giving the buyers all of the leverage, and who knows where he'll end up at this point. Let's look at another example. Here we're looking at a house in Silver Lakes, 4-bedroom. For now let me show you some examples of my own successes using our reverse pricing system. Here are a few examples of what our sellers have been able to accomplish using our pricing strategy. This is our most recent sale. This is in Chapel Trail, West Pembroke Pines. Our seller kind of let us take the wheel here. They needed to sell very quickly as they were closing on their next home within 4 to 5 weeks of contacting me. So there was no time to overprice and waste time and test the waters. We had to get straight to top dollar. So I knew exactly how to do it, and that was pricing fairly and letting buyers dictate the price. As you can see here, we listed at 630, buyers decided, I'm willing to pay 640. That's the way the market works. Buyers are always in control, no matter if it's a seller's or buyer's market. Buyers pay what they are willing to pay. This was a very nice house, so we did get good activity and made the job a little easier, but pricing is key. It took us 4 days to sell. Great success story there. I included a few rentals as well because it's the same strategy that we use. Here I put 20. We'll stop here for now, but I do show 10 cases on each. So this isn't a biased case study. This is showing real results and real errors in today's market. I recently recorded this video, so this isn't outdated or old news. This is today's 2025 Broward County market. So if you own a home in Broward County and want to sell your home with results like this, book a session below and I'll teach you how to tailor this system to your home. Even if you don't work with me, I'll give you the reverse pricing system, and at least you'll know how to win in this market, get top profits, and avoid mistakes that you probably would make without our fail-proof system.